allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Well, I just want to say good evening, and I want to extend a warm welcome to all the participants here, school committee members, elected officials, school administrators, educators, parents, and community members. Your presence and engagement is invaluable as we come together to support the financial well-being of our schools. As we all know, education is one of the most vital investments, and tonight our goal is to make a thoughtful, responsible budget decisions that balance students' needs with financial responsibility. Over the past years, we have a lot to be proud of. We have not only advanced our strategic plan, expanded mental health initiatives, passed major school bond, which is going to change everything, and we celebrate academic and extracurricular success, but we have also worked to improve on the culture and morale within our schools, creating an environment where both students feel valued, supported, empowered to succeed. As we review the financial budget for FY 24, 25, 26, let's engage in transparent and collaborative discussion, keeping the best interest of our students and our community at the forefront of our minds tonight. I appreciate your dedication to this process, and I look forward to a productive meeting. With that, let's officially kick off the JFC with the acceptance of the minutes. Could I have a motion to go ahead and accept the minutes?
So moved.
Nathan is first. And Aaron, that was the second? Tony?
Second.
Tony seconded, thank you. Any discussion?
Just for the record, I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't participate in the minutes, in the acceptance of the minutes.
I understand, thanks, Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have an exciting change of chairperson. Every 2 years, it switches between Warren and Bristol. It's a nice way to show a balance, and I think it's a very good system that we have in place. Could I have a motion to move to open the nominations for position of chairperson of the JFC committee? Who was that? Could I have a motion? So moved, thank you.
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Nathan. And Tony, second, great. And with that, members, do we have a nomination for a chairperson? Any nominations?
I'll nominate Joe DePasquale.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
I'll second.
Nathan was second, great, great. Any other nominations for chair? It's your chance. All right. All right. Could I have a motion to close the nominations?
So move.
Second.
Great. Tony and Nathan. Great, thank you. All right, the nominations are now closed. We'll proceed with a vote. And since there is only one nomination, I declare Joe DePasquale to be elected by acclamation through Robert Rules of Order. Joe DePasquale is now elected as the chairperson of the JFC. Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you, everyone. Can't say I haven't sat in this seat before. I think it was around 7 years ago, 5 years ago. As president of the Warren Council, you are mandatory holding a seat, and we appreciate that, and I appreciate the support of the JFC, and we can move right along. Next, we have new business, and it's discussion and action regarding procedures for scheduling and the organization of upcoming meetings. Who's at the helm for that? Because I don't have anything to add. I'll be there. Anybody have a calendar
The Bristol Town budget is the 17th, 18th, and 19th. I was told by our town clerk we must have JFC before the 24th. So if my colleagues aren't opposed, the 20th, the Thursday, the 20th.
And that's of
What-
March.
What's that?
Of March.
Yes, of
Obviously,
March.
Today's date's what?
Yeah. Yep.
27th?
We already scheduled it, didn't we? There is
scheduled
one
it for the
scheduled for
27th.
March, the end of March.
Did we already, it's already scheduled?
Let me look.
Okay, it's not posted.
I thought I had it down here. I thought I looked at it the other day.
We can vote on the 20th.
I don't
Okay.
know, here.
So
Were
we
you
can,
able to confirm that?
according to Lauren, we can go ahead and we can vote on the 20th,
So that'll be what, 20th? What day is that?
Thursday.
Thursday.
So March 20th, and that would still give us, if there was a problem, the following week. Sounds good?
Correct. And also, Chairman, this gives Bristol, if we have our extended budget on Monday, if there's any changes, we have a chance to get together, and that's why
Well, that-
we're kind of in that
Yeah,
20th
that's what
period.
I was
So
looking at,
just to-
that
Yeah.
window. Mr. Sullivan, do we have any conflicts on our schedule?
As of right now, we do not. Our budget meetings are the 19th, which is that Wednesday before, and then the 26th is our second budget meeting.
Okay, so we should,
I'm sorry, the cafeteria is not available that day, as long as we're okay with, we can meet in the library like we did
If you get
2 meetings ago.
Okay.
It's Music Cafe that night, that's already
It's
scheduled.
very important.
It's very important, we can't, but they won't fit in the library. As long as we're okay with meeting in the library, we can have it on that date.
Just no alarms, Anna.
Can I just ask a question?
Ms.
And
Perella?
that is, are you guys, is Warren okay with having the final budget done for the school department before your budget is finished? I mean, we were running into that before, and we asked to not have that be the case. We're just barely going to be finished.
well, I mean, in the past, I don't think we changed the schedules, did we?
Yeah, we have. I thought we had, but, I mean, I'm just asking. It's hard to do it if your budget's not done, but you have a different budget timeline than we do.
Correct, and when we look at the proposals that are out there, we set our budget based on what the school's asking for. So I wouldn't expect the number to come in higher,
Okay.
I hope, and I'd always welcome a smaller number, so I think we should be okay with that time frame. But thank you for asking. So is there a motion to have the meeting on March 20th?
So moved.
Any discussion further? Hearing none.
Second.
Oh, yeah, second. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on. Presentation, Bristol Warren Regional School District's proposed 25-26 school budget. And
Thank you.
I hand the reins over to you.
Thank you.
You're
You-
welcome.
You have this in your booklet, so you don't have to try to read the small writing up on the board, but you can look in either direction. They're both there for you. So we have had 2 presentations, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, yeah, we didn't officially set a time, so we should
Oh,
set
sure.
that for 6:30. Is that okay with everyone? Same
Yeah,
time?
6:30 is
So
fine.
6:30, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have already previewed this budget with the school committee beginning on February 10th, and then it was approved by the school committee on February 24th, after which we did share this with members of the JFC. And I'll just note that we have met with both town administrators and their CFOs prior to presenting our budget, just to review where we were from kind of the beginning of the process through where we ended up for this evening.
One question before you
Of
go.
course.
I was asked, is the budget online? Is the school budget? And
It's
that's-
on the school committee agenda as a live link. I'm not sure, we haven't posted it to our budget page yet, but we can do that
Yeah,
first thing
Someone
tomorrow
asked me
morning.
yesterday, and
All of our school committee agendas have live links to the backup items. So the first budget from the meeting on the 10th, and then again on the 24th have the budget links right on them. This full budget book is available there.
so the answer would be go through the
School committee,
School
go to the
committee.
school committee agenda.
agenda. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, as was highlighted by the previous chair of JFC, Mr. Sweeney, our goals are really focused on the strategic plan and what those objectives are. We have goals very specific to improving culture and climate, teaching and learning, professional learning, our CTE, our career and technical education programs, and also always working to improve our communication. I'll just highlight, as we move through our goals over the last year, some of the big items that we were able to make lots of progress on in terms of our first goal in creating that safe, inclusive environment. The passing of the bond and the working towards our capital project has been a huge benefit in these conversations, and really coming together with members of the community, members of our school community, but also the community in Bristol and Warren as we move through looking at our school improvements. We're excited about that work also. Looking at improving our student outcomes, our SAT scores continue to improve. We are really proud of our English language arts scores. We are working hard to improve our math scores to meet the high standard that we've set in ELA. But also throughout the district, when we look at our RICAS scores, although we don't see the same gains, we are slowly moving towards improvement. And I would say that using that high quality curriculum that we have for English and math, we continue to support staff and students as we continue to use the materials that we know will support that high learning. Professional learning is the other goal that we've set. This year we did a lot of embedded professional development using instructional coaches to work in classrooms with teachers to improve instruction. Research shows that regular professional development is the best kind of professional development. We're also working towards planning for our professional learning next year, utilizing some of our own staff and creating some choice. That's been one of the requests of the staff, is that they can elect some of their professional learning based on their own growth needs. So that is what we've been working on for next year. When we talk about career and technical education, we are continuing to expand offerings tied to what students want to see. So next year we are embarking on opening a health careers career and tech program. We have a lot of interest from students for that pathway. And again, I just want to remind folks who maybe remember CTE from 20 years ago as a vocational program, that all of our CTE programs lead to either career or college. There are opportunities to get college credits in all of our CTE programming, but also opportunities for students to get out into the workforce in the community and to try their hand at the skills that they're learning in class. So we are really proud of that expansion and looking for more students to be engaged in that work. And then finally, improving communication. This is something that we are always working on. We typically tend to use our website and email, but we know that not everyone is checking those on a regular basis, so we continue to look for opportunities by using our social media pages and messages from our schools to get out the information about all of the things that are happening in the district. We've also worked really hard to partner with our local papers to make sure when we have things going on in our school that those get published for everyone to see. I'll highlight for you some of the big drivers in this FY26 budget. We have, again, had an increased number of students in out-of-district placements. You probably remember this item from last year. This is just the evolution of just high student needs that require programs that we do not provide in the district, and so we have to look for placements outside of Bristol and Warren. We are also going out to bid for our new bus contract. It's a 5-year contract. We are in year 5, so we have to go out to bid in the next month or so. We have, of course, our contractual obligations with our teachers union and our non-certified staff union. The non-certified is actually going to vote in the next couple of weeks, so that one is just finished. We just finished settling that one. And then, of course, as true for not just for us, but both of the towns also, we have the increased costs in health care, dental, and life insurance. And then also similar to the towns, the pension contribution increased for all of us. That happened kind of unexpectedly in the middle of last year, and of course has got to be absorbed by this year's budget also. And then overall, when we look at state aid, not just specific to the town, but when we include all of the buckets in state aid, we'll see a reduction of about $220,000. And when you look at our expenditures, as you know, I usually come before you with as much of a modest increase as I can bring you. This was a really difficult year based on all of the items that I just reviewed with you, and obviously working towards trying to make a budget that is affordable for both towns. I'll tell you that we did begin our budget conversation with a much higher number. We began with about 2.4 million over last year, and we worked really hard to bring that down to the 1.6 that you see on this page here at the bottom. I'll just highlight some of the big changes. You'll see that other purchase services, that increase of, even though it's only 8%, it's $752,000. That is really connected to the increase in out-of-district tuitions, and also increases in property and liability insurance. So that's the driver of that big number. If you look at, there's a reduction in property, which is some IT hardware, but an increase in miscellaneous. Last year, we used our ESSER funds to pay for our tech hardware, and we had been doing that for the last several years, but that would have been too large a number to put into the budget. So we are actually going to use a municipal lease to purchase all of our tech hardware, which will allow us over the next 4 years to build that slowly into the budget rather than creating one large number in the budget. So that is the increase that you see in the miscellaneous line. And then when you go over to the revenues, you can see the town appropriations, and not much else is changing on this list. You can see the swing in Bristol and Warren, that differentiation, and the increase is tied to a couple of factors, one of which is the governor's budget has an increase in state aid for Bristol, but a decrease in state aid for Warren. So when you couple that with our 13-year formula that is also in the back of this book, there's another $80,000 increase on the Warren end versus the Bristol end. So sometimes I think people wonder, why is the number higher for Warren than it is for Bristol? And that's tied to the state aid that's received for both communities, and also that 13-year running formula that we base our budget on. And then you have all of the detail in the packet there, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have about the budget.
I have a couple. Sure. You had a reoccurring theme here about increased number of students out of district placement. What conversations have you had with our state legislators, and what kind of possible relief do we have from that? The deeper question there is that I know of, which I won't get specific, but I know of some students that have gone to other districts for things that I don't think are to a level that would justify that. So that's a nice way of saying not for some particular program of maybe something less than that. So I'm wondering, what opportunities do we have to work with our legislators to maybe make that less attractive, if you will?
So I think you're talking about the out-of-district placements that are choices, like like CTE
Yes.
or charter schools.
That's exactly right.
So that is, I actually serve in another role as a representative from the Superintendent's Association on a state transportation commission, which I'll tell you is one of the ways in which we can improve some of the cost that's tied to that. Although we pay a per pupil for CTE and for charters, and that's another legislative discussion, a part of that cost is the transportation. If you remember, we had asked our state reps and
Yes.
senators to put forward some legislation to get us out of that large region we're in. The region that we're in actually encompasses about 85% of the students in the state. It makes no sense to be in such a large region. So what I'm hoping comes out of that commission, in the very least, is shrinking the region, which would decrease some of our costs around transportation, but also make it less attractive for students to go out of district if they have to provide their own transportation. So shrinking that region should help, and also the more programs we add, the less likely students are to look for programs outside of our district. But this increased cost that I'm talking about, not district tuitions, are really not student selected. They are the special education placements that unfortunately there are not many of in the state, and those costs are just high. So even just a small number of students going out of district. So we're increasing our special ed budget, and I have that number down here. It's going from 3.1 million to 3.5 million. And that 400,000 could be 3 students. It's just those costs are really high.
Okay.
And the other way that that could be supported by the state is we do get categorical funds for high-cost special education, but the state has not increased that bucket of money in quite a few years, and it's divided up amongst all of us. So what happens is the high-cost threshold changes every year based on how many are eligible across the state, because they have never increased the bucket of money that they give back to districts.
Thank you.
Can we just follow up on that? On the kids that are going out for CTE, how many are going out and how many are coming in? Like, is it a wash or not yet?
Not yet. So currently we have 2 students? We have 2 students currently tuitioned in for CTE. And I want to say we have almost 20 students going out right now for CTE.
It's a big
So
difference.
there is, and I have to say, I do think as we grow our programs and when we open a new high school, I think we will see a shift in that. And it takes time to grow those programs. In 2014, when I was in Portsmouth, we started those programs, just started in 2014, and now they're tuitioning in 20 to 30 students a year. It takes time to grow that.
Where
So
are most
we'll-
of our kids going? Just example.
we have about 10 students who go to Portsmouth for CTE programming. We have 1 student who goes to Newport, 1 student who goes to Pawtucket. Sometimes they're for very specific programs. Newport is cosmetology. We don't offer that program, and we don't have a large enough number of students interested that we would offer it. So we're always going to have some of those one-offs. Hopefully what we can do is capture where a bulk of our students are going. I think our construction program is one of the best in the state. We don't have room right now to take in students from other districts. When we can expand that program with our new high school and having more space, we'll be able to tuition students, and I believe that will be a very attractive program because there aren't many of those in the state, and ours is of a very high caliber.
I got something to add on.
Please.
As long as we're on this conversation, my question was related to that too. So I think that these are 2 very good questions, but even before I get to my question, I just want to congratulate everybody on the school committee for arriving at your budget and everything. I know how difficult it can be sometimes to reach consensus. Was this a unanimously passed budget, or?
We had 2 abstentions, but otherwise the rest were all
okay.
yeses.
So, congratulations.
Thank you.
On getting everything done. What I'm hearing you say is it does take a little time to grow, right? And, it's something that we see at the college level too. Like, I have a program where we went from 30 to 50, and it took or 30 to 80. And so it took about, 3 to 4 years to get there. My question for you was, what kind of marketing tools do you have in place, and do you have plans to evaluate your marketing so that you're doing this? CTE is an important way that we can grow, right? The number of students that we have and everything like that. So what kind of strategies do you have, or is this something that RIDE is doing or something, or do we have an individual marketing plan for each
It's
one of
our
these
own
programs?
plan. RIDE doesn't market any of the CTEs. They leave that to the district. So we have a marketing program, actually, and so they do contribute to that, but our CTE coordinator here in the high school is the one who leads that process. And I'll tell you, I was here at CTE night. We have an open house. We send postcards out to all of the local communities. I think when we have, as our programs grow, and definitely when we open our new high school, we're going to do a little bit bigger sharing out of those postcards to anyone in our transportation region. Right now, we kind of circulate in the towns closest to us. And we had quite a few students come that evening with their families to look at our programs and showcase. And again, I listened, I shadowed a couple of families and some students as they walked around. And right now, our biggest selling point is our own students, who are there talking about the programs and sharing with other students kind of what they're learning, what they're doing, what they're going to do when they leave here, whether it's to college or to work, and sharing that. And what I heard some of our students say, which again gets me excited about having a new high school, and they're like, I know it looks modest when you look around, but we've been able to do, and they kind of list all the things that they've done, even though they don't have the facility that they would love to have. And so I really think that as we get to that point, we already have the best salespeople there are to have. It's our own students talking about what they're learning, what they're doing, and what they're doing next. The missing piece is the facility, and when we have that, I think that our opportunities will grow the same way that you see your opportunities
So
growing.
I think it does help me to know that there is a CTE coordinator. So
Yes,
there
there
is
is.
somebody that is being held accountable for enrollment and everything like
Yep.
that in the CTE programs. And so we're looking forward to seeing what we're able to do with that in the
Yes.
future. So,
How much do we spend on transportation? And
For out of district or in district?
whatever we need, a school bus, well, I guess overall. Because you're negotiating the contract now
For our in district.
in district. So out of the, let's say in district, what is the, do you know what the percentages of students that ride the bus?
So 4.3 million, so I don't know the number off the top of my head, I can get that for you, but what we do is we have to buy a bus per day, so we look at our biggest run, which happens to be our middle school run, and then those buses get filled, and however many buses we need to run that one run, we're paying for that bus for the day. So I know we sometimes get calls from the public and say, I've seen buses with no kids on it, why are we paying for buses? Well, we're paying for the full run during the middle school time. The buses that show up at their middle school are full. There are no buses with, half a dozen kids on it. But let's say that number is, and I think it's 21 buses. 21 buses is what we pay for a day. Those 21 buses are full when they show up at the middle school. But we've already paid for them, so then what we do for elementary and high school, we try to make the runs as short as possible using our 21 buses, because that's what we've paid for the day. We do anticipate that when we go out to bid, that we can reduce from 21 to 19, because remember also, that contract was negotiated 5 years ago, when our enrollment was higher. So we should be able to reduce from 21. We think we're projecting 19 buses will be enough to run our full middle school run, but we'll have to reevaluate that when we move 5th grade to the middle school. So we have to build that into our contract. But that's how our budget is built. It's around how many buses per day, and you have them for the day.
Thank you, I didn't realize it was by the day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
I just had a question in regards, go ahead, Tony.
Mr. Avila, then Mr. Sweeney.
Staying with the buses, okay? At the present time, are we negotiating on our own, or are we working with the municipalities?
We are working with
To
Tiverton
join
and
in.
Little Compton, and Middletown, I'm sorry, and Middletown. Used to be the whole East Bay, but during COVID, some of them got off schedule because they just extended for a year or did some little bit of nuanced things, so now we're not all on the same cycle, but we're working with everyone else who's on our cycle. It used to be those towns plus Barrington and Portsmouth, but they're off our schedule now, so.
Mr. Texera, I apologize for saying Avila. Yeah, I said Tony Avila, I didn't know. You answered, so.
I did, it's all part of the family.
I know.
Mr. Sweeney.
Good thing they're related, good thing he likes his cousin.
It's a very extended family.
I just had a question on the 31% decrease in property expenditures. And I was just wondering, that's due to Kateris closing?
Tim, what page are you on?
No, he's
So-
right on the main schedule. It's down 46,000. That was some tech hardware that was being purchased in the budget that's going into that municipal lease.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't pay on the property. The town owns Gutierrez, so.
But also the
Contente.
closure of
We're going to
Gutierrez.
close it, so you see some savings in the electric lines, the water lines, the natural gas lines. That's where you see the savings, and we did, so not itemized in this budget, we did cut about 17 full-time staff based on enrollment. So once we shift Gutierrez, reallocating and looking at class size and moving students from one school to the other, we were able to create some savings by eliminating staff.
And is there an actual closure date for Gutierrez and when that comes back to the town?
No, we're working with the town. We'll need some time
okay,
to
okay.
empty what we promised the students and families is we're not going to start packing up Gutierrez while kids are still there.
Yeah.
We're not doing that to them. We will let them finish the school year,
Good.
and then we will begin work to kind of close down operations. So we anticipate we'll need some time in the summer to do that, and we'll work together with the town to decide on that date. But sometime over the summer. We have already notified, we have to notify the Department of Education 6 months in advance of closing a school, so we've already done that, and we have let the town know it's going to happen, but we haven't set a date because we're not sure how long
No.
it'll take us to get everything packed up, moved that needs to move, and kind of close down the building. But sometime this summer, it will be turned over back
This
to
summer,
the
so-
town.
but sometime, okay, great.
Mr. Contente?
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you for being available for questions throughout the year. And from the town side, I know our finance director's here, and you've been helpful answering questions. But a new question just arose tonight. You talked about the funding formula and why Bristol may have gotten a little bit more this year than Warren. And I'm looking at the formula calculation that RIDE produces. Is there any one of those columns, like poverty rate and different things, is there anything that the communities could do to get more, to weigh in a little bit more in that formula that you're aware of? Something that we might be missing that we could work on a little bit more?
It's really mostly based on property valuations, so I think that it changes when you have a valuation. So I believe Warren just went through a valuation, so their number shifted. I don't think Bristol, you did 2 years ago, I think, right?
We got one going on right now, so.
You're going, so that might
statistically,
impact
yeah.
your number for
Yeah,
next year, but
I
that's
see.
that's the largest component
It is,
of that
okay.
decision. And and then they use the poverty numbers from the district and the town, but that number, because of our poverty numbers are relatively low comparative to the rest of the state, that doesn't have as big an impact. It's really the property values that have the largest impact on state aid.
Okay, well, while you're here, I may as well ask you a couple more about it, 'cause I
Sure.
think you worked at RIDE, right? What is student success factor funding?
So they look at the student success factor is looking at the poverty levels, the percentage of students who have special education. It used to include the multilingual students, but now they have their own categorical fund. So they weigh those two factors, and they look at your comparative data between those students and the students who don't qualify, and then they assess a number. We don't qualify for it. You have to be a minimum of 50% to poverty, and we're at just under 30, so we don't really get a big boost from that number.
Okay. And one other question aside from that, and just because somebody was talking about it today at work, the band and music at the high school and the lower grades, that's still well-funded, right?
Yes, we actually brought band to 5th grade this year, knowing that 5th grade will move to the middle school at some point. We wanted to start to build that program and start to get 5th graders interested in instruments and
Good.
band.
Yeah, that's good. I think years ago, you started in 4th grade, I thought, years ago, band.
You're right.
We
Was
used
it,
to.
were you,
Yes.
Maybe when 5th grade moves to the middle school, the music director will ask me to move band down to 4th grade. But right now, this is the first year we've had in 5th grade. And we've got I mean, it's not huge, but enough kids that will help grow the band at middle school for
Yeah.
next year, for sure.
well, I always said that music and golf, you can play them at any age, right? So,
I'm still figuring out how to play the golf part, so I won't even go there.
again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to go back, just from my point of clarification. So am I to understand that Gutierrez will be closed as of well, not June, but it'll be after the summer, so will not open for the upcoming school year,
Correct.
correct?
And I had just a question in regards to making sure that this budget definitely supports, advancing student achievements, continuing staffing, learning opportunities, and we're still keeping that strong.
Yes, the cuts to the budget were not programmatic. We're not reducing any programs for students.
Good.
Most of the cuts were made due to enrollment shifts.
Can you speak a little bit more about that enrollment? We all know that it's going down, but could you get a little more specific on that?
Sure. So when enrollment decreases regularly, like it looks over years, and you see that we're decreasing by 70 students, that's not typically all in one grade level, right? It's spread across K to 12. So what we wait, before we start to kind of shrink down how many of every grade we have, we look at trends over time. So just 1 year of a small class size doesn't necessarily mean that next year it will repeat itself. So we wait for there to be a little bit of a trend. So what we noticed as we were getting ready to merge Gutierrez and Colt Andrews is that both of them, when we put them together, didn't need the number of classrooms to support the number of students. So we call them tracks. There were 2 tracks at Gutierrez, so 2 of every grade. And Colt Andrews had kind of a mix of 3-track and 4-track, depending on the grade level. It was kind of closing out 4-track at the higher grade levels. So when we put them together, we didn't need 4 of every track. 3 were enough as we went through the grades, except for 3rd and 4th grade, where there are just higher numbers of students in those grades. So next year at Colt Andrews, there will be 3 kindergartens, 3 first, 3 seconds, but we'll need 4 3rd grades, 4 4th grades, and then we only need 3 5th grades. That little bump in 3 and 4 will roll out, but it looks like all of our projected enrollment before that, 3 of every grade will be enough to manage that for quite a while. We looked at Hugh Cole the same way. So Hugh Cole over the years has started to lose enrollment, and we had noticed this year that in both K and 1, we could have gone down from 4 tracks to 3. We wanted to ensure that that was going to continue and wasn't just a weird birth year. And so it looks like that is coming true in the trend. So next year, the same thing will be true. The exact same thing will be true at Hugh Cole. They will have 3 tracks of K1, 2. They'll have 4 tracks of 3, 4, and 3 tracks of grade 5. Just the way it looks like in the census the enrollment is going. So that's where we were able to make some reductions in staffing.
Ms. Perella?
I just wanted to, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I wanted to ask. I can't remember, it was on like Facebook or an email to me about you, Cole, and going down to like, say, just 2 tracks.
3.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think what I had read was going down to maybe 2 and how that was going to increase class size. But you're
So-
saying it's going to stay pretty much the way,
So we have a contractual obligation around class size, and at the elementary, it's 24. None of our classrooms will be above 24.
Could you just explain to me one more time why Warren's increase is larger than Bristol's?
It's not the whole reason, but part of the reason is that change in state aid, because what happens is the formula, the way that it's built for our regional 13-year rolling averages, we put in what the split is for each and then subtract your state aid. So when your state aid goes down by 200,000, that's 200,000 the town's got to put in to make up for that reduction in state aid.
I thought that, I just wanted to,
Yeah. That's the biggest driver, really, when you look at the number. And then Bristol actually increased their state aid, which reduces how much they have to put in.
because it's almost the same amount.
Right.
All right, I just needed to make sure.
Sorry.
No,
I don't make the
I need to
formula,
know
I
the
just
ans-
have to plug it in.
I need to know how to answer people. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That formula needs to be updated.
Any other questions? Any other discussions? Are we taking questions from the public tonight, or
Well, that usually
I
happens
have
at
to
the
check
second
the
meeting,
agenda to make sure that there's,
right?
tonight's my first night back, Mr. Hewlett. So, thank you. I believe we're going to have public comments at the next meeting.
Correct.
So this one is a presentation and comments from the JFC.
You're correct, Joe. There's no,
Thank you.
no public comment on this one.
So, moving on to the next, we're all set with this? Okay. So, next we have Bristol Planning Board request. On October 10th, 2024, the Bristol Planning Board reviewed and granted approval for the new Mount Hope High School. They passed a motion to request the JFC designate funding in future budgets to be specifically set aside for continued maintenance of high school drainage. Is there any action on these, or is this just a statement?
It's more of a receive and file, but we want, for the record, Chairman, we would like to, Anna to, or Adam McGovern to, respond to what they're going to be doing.
Thank
What
you.
action's going to happen. Just
So
confirm.
I can start, and then
Feel
Adam,
free, please, floor is
welcome to
yours.
set it. So, and we have shared this information with the planning board also. So we are required by law, regardless of what the district does, we are required to put 3% of our budget towards maintenance of our buildings. So that is part of how we build our budget. We currently put in more than the 3%, but there's a minimum requirement. And we have committed, and the school committee has, I would say, kind of doubled down on that commitment by also approving a policy that says we will at minimum ensure that that funding is put in for maintenance. And I will tell you, and I'll Adam talk a little bit about what we've been discussing in terms of how we will maintain some of the aspects of the new facility.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the benefit of getting a brand-new construction project and maybe just a time of maybe modern practice is that we'll also receive what they're calling an operations and maintenance manual from the construction company. So we'll get a document, electronic document, that will basically tell us everything we need to do and when we need to do it. And this will be something that's developed by the group that designed and implemented the project. So I think that's just a benefit for us as a district to have the resource to know what we need to do and when we need to do it so that we can plan accordingly, not just from a timing perspective, but from a funding perspective as well.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
A
Ms.
follow-up on
Varela?
that. I mean, one of the issues, over here, it says the planning board for continued maintenance of high school drainage, the drainage issues, and you talked about that as a requirement to do 3% towards maintenance. I mean, maintenance is maintenance, and the drainage issue, particularly here, I mean, it's supposed to all be fixed with the design and so forth, but it does impact, I mean, I've already had people calling me about the cemetery and how the impact, and there's some serious drainage issues in the past there. Also, when they've talked about having a hotel on Gooding, I mean, there's a lot of potential things right in this area. And so I think that they're talking about like having some reserve, and how we go about and get to that end, I'm not exactly sure, that deals with the drainage issues, because it has a huge impact on our community and our neighbors and so forth.
I think the planning board itself stated publicly at our last meeting that not only have we met all of their requirements, but we've gone beyond them to improve the drainage from the high school. We can't do anything about a new hotel or actually the cemetery's drainage, but everything that we're doing on our property will not only deal with all of the issues that are on the property, but it will improve all of the downhill drainage issues from our property.
I understand that, and I understand that all of the impacts on the neighbors down Naomi and on the cemetery are all because of the watershed. I mean, it's not like, well, not our problem. Yes, it's this whole area that's created the problem. And I know that this plan, I know if they go with the hotel, that plan is all supposed to contain the water and the drainage and be better than what it started out to be. I'm just trying to be clear on what I think they're asking about. They're not asking for maintenance, they're asking for maintenance to deal with the drainage issues should problems come up.
Well, I think what they're talking about specifically here is that we have built into the plan, we have some culverts and some other areas, and I think they're talking specifically, making sure that those are maintained, and we're addressing those. And I think that's what Adam was speaking to, is that all of these items will come with specific manuals around what's required to maintain the culverts. Trying to think of
Just a variety, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's one unique thing about the design of the site is there's a lot of unique, they call them best management practices of different bioswales and containments and pipes and sand and all this. And I just think in order to meet the design that we're proposing, that is reducing the amount of flow and reducing kind of the timing of it, is we just have to be able to ensure that those different, utilizations of nature here, because that's kind of what we're doing, are maintained. So make sure things aren't blocked with debris, make sure things aren't blocked with trash. Are there some routine cleaning you have to do of some sand or stones or things like that. So I think that's what they're referring to, because we have a design that we all feel confident that will provide a better site plan than we currently have. But I think the point
So
is
I-
that we
I
need to
think-
maintain it,
Yeah.
or it won't be, or it won't work, right? If we have a
I think
drain.
that we just have to be clear, probably ask, like, the planning board for clarification on what they were referring to, because ultimately, these kinds of issues, I'm not saying it's gonna happen here, but ultimately, over the years, these issues all end up in front of the town council, you know, when people are being flooded out or whatever the case may be. So I think we just need to make a note of that and ask the planning board and the chairman.
Well, Ms. Mack can correct me if I'm wrong, and this is great public information. I was always under the legal guidance that the JFC didn't pick where you spent and what you spent. It was the approval
Right.
or denial of the funding. So they may be, have good intention, but I don't believe this is something that we could actually
Control.
JFC designate in your budget.
Can I ask a quick
Please,
question?
Mr. Lay.
Chairman? So I'm just looking at the line items on the budget and everything like that. And I noticed that there's the maintenance and repair general, maintenance and repair for tech-related hardware and things like that. Is there going to be a maintenance and repair for the drainage stuff? A line item specifically devoted to that?
Right, there's not a specific UCOA line that says that, but built into the maintenance at each building includes maintenance around some of those very items. There's not a specific, like, for school drainage line. We could create one, but that's not specified in the line, it just calls it maintenance.
I have a suggestion. How about if we get clarity, and I reached out to Diane Williamson for everyone's information, the Community Development Director, in regards to this particular item. Why don't we reach out and get clarity from the planning board, what specifically they were speaking of? I think we all have the gist here, though, is that things like this, if not maintained, have tremendous, massive consequences. So I think we're all on the same page on that, but why don't we ask them specifically what they were concerned about, and maybe we can express that at the next meeting?
Sure, that's what I just said.
Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
I love that.
It's
Outstanding.
hard to hear in these rooms with all the.
Outstanding. Beautiful.
Tony, too.
Moving right along.
So we can continue this?
I think
Again,
everybody's in agreement.
I'm under the guidance, previously, when previous JFCs have tried to delve into specifics. We can ask information about those line items, we can ask the cost, we can ask the priority in the budget, which is usually based on the highest cost. I don't think the JFC has the authority to,
I agree that we can't compel, but
I
we
think
can
we should
request
know
and
what
they
it
can
is, yeah.
agree, right? So we can't compel.
And I think that's what the planning board was looking
Yeah.
for.
Right.
Because they spoke even at their meeting, they said, we know JFC can't tell you to do this, but we'd like it stated again. I think they just want it to be very public in all the forums, that we're all publicly agreeing, because this won't happen for 3 or 4 years. They just want to be very clear that we continue to say publicly that we are committed to maintaining.
And
I
that's
think
my
Mr.
understanding.
Fleming hit the nail
and-
on the head in
yeah.
regards to making sure that that line item is secured, because
Correct.
as he stated, the ramifications do go downstream, or upstream, actually, if the water's not moving.
You need to
So-
be clear what they're asking.
So if we can, maybe
You
I can
got
make a
it.
motion that we continue this to our next meeting, just for clarity on that
That
from them?
one second,
Sure.
yeah, I
Sure.
would second that.
All right,
There's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Nice.
next.
Approval of,
Well, you got a continuation, Joe, that's
here we go, my first. Approval of borrowing and issuance of not to exceed $89,500,000 one-year note 2025 under the authority of the voter-approved $200 million school bond to refund the principal and interest due on the 24 note, 2024 that is, to finance additional school projects, capitalize interest and cost of issuance, to authorize the preparation and posting of a preliminary and final official statement to market the sale of the 2025 note, and to authorize the superintendent, chairperson, or treasurer to accept the interest rate and terms of the 2025 note. I'm sure someone has something they can say about this.
Sandy Mack?
Ms. Mack.
At the outset, I want to say that the $89 million 89,500,000 has actually increased to not to exceed 90 million, and I'll try to explain in a minute what's happening.
Just go right ahead, and then whatever action we take, it will be noted in that.
So at the last town council, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
At the last,
Yeah, not that well.
at the last town council,
There it is.
at the last school committee meeting, there was an appointment of underwriters to proceed with a competitive pricing on the note, a little bit different than we've done in the past. And the reason for that, and the use of an underwriter, is it's a large sum of money. It's not to exceed $90 million. So, as part of that process, there's going to be the preparation of an official statement, and those of you on the town that have done other borrowings know that that is a very precise document that describes the financial situation of both towns and the district, and describes the project in detail. When we first started working on this project, we had a schedule imposed on us because the very first 2024 note had a maturity date of April 8th this year. As we're marching toward having to repay that 6.3 million note, 6.320 million note, we're going to get that money from this next note. The problem is that, not due to any fault of the towns or the districts, I want to say at the outset, the audits are not in such shape that we can actually complete the production of that document to go out and get the interest rates. So we had, when we realized that we were in a position of not being able to meet that April date, we have gone back to the holder of that note and said, hey, listen, we're going out as fast as we can, but we can't go out without adequate financial information from the towns and the district. And so will you hold and extend this note for 30 or preferably 60 days so each of the towns can complete their audit, or at least get a final draft audit, so we have those numbers to put into the official statement to go and market the bonds. The underwriters feel that you will fare better in the market with that information, and to not have that information is not helpful to the process. So we had a call today with administration to let them know that we're considering two paths right now. One path is to extend the maturity by 30 days or 60 days. If we need to do that, I will come back before you again with another vote to do that. But we're also staying the course of what we have been trying to do, which is to approve the $90 million and to authorize the official statement and then bring that to the school committee. They're not in conflict with one another. The $90 million must be issued at one point or another. It's just at what point will we issue that $90 million note. So the vote before you today is slightly different from the vote that was in your packet. And for anybody who wants to see the changes, I marked them so you can see. But the most important changes related to the date of setting the interest rate. And that date, if we can get the bond owner of the 24 note to extend for 30 or 60 days, we're going to push out that date of selling the up to $90 million bonds. So I'm going to pause there for a minute because I gave you a lot of information and see if there's any questions before I go through the actual vote tonight for all of you.
And I did leave at each of your places the document that Attorney Mack
Sandy,
is referring to.
I do. It would seem to me that, and you're an attorney and speak to us directly about this, that going from $89 million to $90 million is a substantive change. I know it's just $5 million, right? But
$500,000, 89.5 to 90.
oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading that. Thank you for that
You're
clarity.
welcome.
Is that substantive enough that we advertise this correctly? Maybe somebody said, I'm okay at $89 million, but 90 million is just too much for me.
I don't think it's substantive enough because we're saying not to exceed an amount, and most likely we're gonna come in well below the 89.5.
Thank you.
We say not to exceed because if the market turns in a way and we have to issue more, that's fine. But based on the numbers that we're seeing, it'll probably be below what was in the agenda.
Thank you.
Does this in any way impact our payback schedule?
Well, yes and no. You must pay back the 6.320 on the due date unless the bond purchaser agrees to extend it. We have already started the conversation, and they are underwriting it for another 30 to 60 days. And we expect that to be the case. So the answer is no, it won't affect the 90 million issue, but it will affect when we pay back that 6.3, because the only way you can pay back the 6.3 is to issue the next note.
It's absorbed by the 90.
Exactly.
And that overall, 90 won't impact our due date, because that's still down the road in the
That'll
future.
be another year after, that's right.
Okay, just,
There are, just so you all know.
I mean, I need to know this stuff by the minute.
There are rules under your enabling statute and under the legislation that actually requires you to issue in a temporary notes for a temporary period of time. So we are going to facilitate this within the enabling statute by an allonge to the original note. And an allonge is just a fancy way of saying all the terms of that note are going to stay the same, except the maturity date's going to be either 30 days, 45 days, or 60 days later. I am trying to go out 60 days just so that we don't go through this just to find out that the audit still isn't ready. So, or at least a final draft of the audit so we can get to the market with some information.
And just to be clear on the process, so if we prove tonight there's an audit that needs, financials that need to come into play to determine the actual interest rate, I just want to make sure I'm following the process. Is that, no?
No.
Okay.
The vote before you today is the vote that we have a schedule that we've
Okay.
been on to issue the not to exceed 90 million.
Got it.
And that schedule first required appointment of an underwriter, done.
Okay.
Second, requires the Joint Finance Committee to approve the issuance of not more than $90 million in this next note.
Okay.
That's what I'm here before you tonight. Third, we then go to school committee, and then school committee, upon the recommendation of this committee, says, we agree, go out with the issuance.
Okay.
The only difference today is when we do that.
Okay. Thank you.
We're either gonna do it the end of March, or we're gonna do it the end of April, or the end of May.
Got it.
And
Thank you, that cleared up
that's gonna be driven
my-
by the auditors, frankly, nobody in this room. And we're gonna try awfully hard, the finance directors and Danielle and Anna, to get, some serious numbers before us so that we can put it in the official statement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a funny feeling, Ms. Mack, that I'm required to read this resolution.
You do not need to
Oh.
read this, Mr. Chairman. I'm
Okay.
gonna help you by describing it, and then there would be a motion to adopt the resolution in the form presented to the committee.
For those of you wondering, it's 2 pages, so I was just,
There would be a motion to that effect and then seconded. So, again, I'm going to describe the motion, so it doesn't need to be read. So the first 3 recitals, which are the whereas clauses, talk about the local act, your enabling legislation, and what it allows the district to do, and this committee in particular. The second recital talks about the fact that last year, you started the process of borrowing under the $200 million bond issue. You borrowed $6,320,000. You haven't paid any interest on that, so the $6,320,000 plus the interest that is earned on that by the bond purchaser is due on April 8th, 2025. The third recital talks about your plan to pay the 6,320,000 plus the interest by the issuance of this additional note in 2025. And that additional note will be used for the following. One, to pay off the 2024 note and the interest. Okay, so that's off your books. Two, to then fund the description that I put in here, which I'm sure everyone will want to know, is the final site development and site improvements at the high school, abatement and demolition of existing buildings, construction of the new building, financing capital improvements at Rockwell, Hugh Cole, Cole Andrews, and Kicking schools to include, again, site work, site improvements, rehabilitation, renovations, utilities, roofing, exterior envelope, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and interior renovations. So again, a wide swath of projects on all the schools, but all capital in nature and able to be financed with the note. The third use of these 90 million is to fund something called capitalized interest. And what that means is that when you receive whatever it is, 88, 89, 90, whatever the amount ends up being, a certain amount of that money is going to be put aside in a separate account, and that account is going to be used to pay the interest in 26 when this note is due. That's what capitalized interest is. So you don't have to pay it. Again, you're going to use all of these funds for the project, but the bond holders will know that there's interest payment to be made. Now, there's a little trick here, and that is when the 90 million comes in, we're going to invest it. And so whatever we invest in that, under the tax code, we are allowed to use those earnings on the amount that's being invested in that capital interest account to offset the interest that's being paid. So a simple example, let's say the bond is 4%, and let's say that Danielle finds a place to put this and it's going to offer 3.5%. Well, guess what? That 3.5% on the money that's not being used is going right into that CAPI account. And at the end, when you go to pay the interest on this 90 million or whatever it ends up being, it's not going to be the full 3.5 million, which would be the amount if it were at 4%, but it's going to be less whatever you earn on that. And that's just an example called arbitrage. So this plan of funding is designed in a way that you can continue with the project, borrowing for this 1 year period of the projects that you have before you without having to come into your budget for the interest until the end when you're actually going to issue a bond. And we try to sync that up. When the bond is issued is when RIDE's going to start to reimburse us. So there's a method to the madness, but in the meantime, we proceed year to year until the project's done. So that's the third, so I've explained the third recital, which is how the money is going to be used. So, double-sided paper, we're not killing more trees than we need to. So now, there's final references to the law that requires this committee to authorize the issuance of the notes and the borrowing, and then to recommend it to the school committee. And so the two resolutions that you're adopting today is pursuant to that section of the enabling legislation, section 11, that you approve the temporary borrowing, again, temporary 1 year, for up to 90 million. Can't go above it, most likely will be below it. And the issuance of these notes to then pay the project I just described, and then authorizing the superintendent, chairperson, district treasurer to accept the rates at the time, whether it's March, April, or May, that the interest rate's set, because at that point in time, we will actually be in a position to close the deal.
So do we have a motion to accept the way that Ms. Mack has put this whole resolution into short form? It's all printed here, and you were very diligent in the explanation. Is there a motion to accept
Motion to accept?
The resolution in the form presented.
the resolution in the
That's
form?
what Tim said. I heard Tim.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'll second that.
Is there any
Thank you, Dave.
discussion?
Got a good ear.
Any additional discussion now that it's on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Somebody have a pen and the original. My first signature is needed. Can this one be, is this,
I'll give you an official copy.
thank you. There it is.
You gonna give you a pen away, Joe?
Yes. So, that, pretty exciting, tough to follow that, but we will. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be back.